We've just come through the Christmas season, and when many of us think of Jesus and Christmas, the words peace and joy might come to mind. However, his arrival in the world brought anything but peace or joy to those who were in political power at the time, or to the church for that matter. We learn in Matthew chapter 2 that at the time of Jesus' birth, it was what they called the time of King Herod. It was his time. And Herod was one of the most vicious rulers in the Roman Empire. Caesar Augustus once said that it'd be better to be a pig in Herod's house than to be one of Herod's sons. You see, Herod was Jewish, and you couldn't eat pork. But Herod killed 3 of his sons out of fear that one of them would surpass him and take his crown. That's how much Herod needed to stay in power. So we learn that in the time of King Herod, that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. That some magi, they're called. Magi came from the east to Jerusalem, asking about this child, the one they were calling King of the Jews. They said that we saw his star rising, and we've come here to worship him. Now, the idea that these magi have come, we've sort of romanticized in our world. These aren't wise men. They are astrologers. Magicians is where we get our word from. And in the words of the Bible, frequently they're idolaters. They're worshiping stars. They're listening to stars. And they've followed this symbol of their idolatry. And the symbol of their idolatry has basically led them to Jesus. And they come claiming that they're looking for the King of the Jews, but they're not looking for Herod. And that's going to be a problem. This is not going to go well. See, Caesar gave Herod that title. And saying those words about anybody other than Herod was treason. Herod was the king. And that's it. And any threat to Herod's reign would be eliminated, as his own sons were. And so when King Herod heard about this, it says he was troubled. This was his time. And it turns out, it says that all of Jerusalem was troubled with him. All of Jerusalem. And perhaps like the modern white evangelical church of today, the church of that time had something of a political alliance with a man that they know probably isn't really a very good person. But they also know that persecution will come if you cross this man. And that if you be good to this man, he will honor and respect your religion, potentially. So they had something of a deal. So their goal was basically to keep the peace, rather than to believe the possibility that these magi, these magicians, these idolaters, were right, that the actual Messiah had actually come, the person that the church had been looking for their entire lives. They never consider the possibility that he has actually come. Moreover, these magi, of course, they've got no credibility. And they were not going to risk trouble with Herod based on the word of a bunch of magicians. So in this first scene of Jesus' life after the Christmas story, we find this collision of cultural and religious and social drama that will change the course of history. Kingdoms are colliding. Everything's being turned upside down, and a political ruler bent on keeping his power at all costs, pretending to be religious, has this alliance with the church. So when Herod heard all this, he was troubled. Jerusalem was troubled. And so what Herod does, of course, is he calls together the chief priests and the scribes to understand where the Messiah was to be born. Herod, he's Jewish. Racially, he's an Arab. Politically, he's Roman. But religiously, he's a Jew. So he goes to consult the religious authorities at the time to get to the bottom of this. Where is the Messiah coming? And what we have to see and understand here is what we already know in our soul is that the world is going to leverage whatever it can to achieve its goals. Political leaders will leverage whatever they can to achieve their goals. And sometimes those political leaders include the church, who will be complicit in achieving those goals. And frequently the church is willing to be leveraged if they have some power in this as well. So he asked them where the Messiah was to be born, and they told him, in Bethlehem of Judea. For it's written, they say, they're quoting Micah here, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people. Now here's what's interesting. The Jews, while they're quoting, these church leaders are quoting their own Bible, Micah 5:2, they misquote it. They hedge their bets, because Micah 5:2 actually literally says, for from you shall come forth one who is to rule in Israel. And they know they better not tell Herod this. They know that this is just going to inflame him, that they know that his ego can't handle it. His hunger for power can't handle the truth. So the church does what the church does. It misrepresents their own scriptures for fear of how Herod will react. So the Magi, they consult the stars, the Jews consult their Bible, and both are pointing to the exact same place. The only difference is the Magi actually go to look. These sorcerers, these gypsies, these astrologers are actually seeking the Messiah. And those with the Bible are aiding and abetting the political structure. They don't want to know. They don't want to know this Jesus. Their allegiance is to Herod. He's the king. He is their king. He is their king. So Herod secretly calls the Magi, and he learns the exact time and place where the star appeared, and he sent them to Bethlehem, aided by the information, of course, he got from the church. He says, go and search for the child, and when you found him, bring word to me so that I also may go worship him, which, of course, we know Herod has no intention of doing, because after the Magi find the child, we learn that Herod kills all the children. But pretending to be religious, if it works for you politically, is something that's politically what people do. Even when your intention is not to worship this child at all, but to destroy him. So when they heard what Herod had said, they set out, and there ahead of him went the star. The star is still leading. And it stopped over the place where Jesus was, and when they saw the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. The only time you see joy here. Entering the house, they saw Mary, they saw the child, and they fell down and worshipped. They didn't need Herod or the church to tell them how to find Jesus. The star led them. Their symbol of idolatry led them. The Roman king of the Jews, he wouldn't lead people to Christ. He said he would. The church believed him. And this unbelieving, troubled church, they won't lead people to Christ. Even when they know exactly where to find him. They have to keep the peace with the politicians. And so Jesus will lead people to himself, the most unexpected people, people the church to this day believes are sinners and heathen. They will hear his voice. They will see the star. And they'll go looking. And they'll find him. This isn't an ancient story. This is our story. This is us, church. This is the church bending their own scriptures to follow a man they know has no desire to really find their Savior. This is the church bending their own scriptures to allow them to follow a man who they know has no desire to pursue their Savior. This is about a church still willing to abandon their Savior to appease a man. Most importantly, because God will deal with all that, this is about people abandoned by the church as sinners because of their lifestyle and beliefs, who Jesus is calling to himself, even now, to come worship him.